good afternoon, or good morning, wherever you may be. My name is Terry Reed, and I'm a sales consultant with Vision 33. I will be hosting your Sage Intacct non for profit demo today. I am joined by my colleague, Matthew Frampton, and he is a senior Intact consultant here. And he will be walking you through a high level overview of Sage Intacct. But before we get things started, I'm just going to give you a brief overview of Sage Intacct and Vision 33 in particular. And here's our agenda. So you get about 5 minutes from me and then 40 minutes from Matthew. And then we'll leave some time at the end for questions. So before we do get into that demo, just a little bit of information about Vision 33. We think selecting the right software is obviously very important for your organization, but choosing the right partner is really what makes the difference for your business. So a few things that Vision 33 brings to the table as a partner. We have an extensive support team and a lot of industry knowledge in the accounting world. We have many long-time customers who rely on our partnership to support their business, and we're a leader in the Sage community. We've been a partner for over 30 years. Implementation is just the beginning of basically your ERP journey. Vision 33 is here for your long-term support and customer care. We have customers that have been working with us for 20 plus years, and we've walked them through their ERP journey, going from Sage 50 to Sage 300 and now to Sage Intacct. So ultimately, it's our consistency, our reliability, our focus on excellent customer experiences, and leveraging our knowledge to help you transform accounting frustrations into success and strategic growth. Like Sage, Vision 33 is a global company, but we'd like to say we operate as a small business. Our main operations are in the US, Canada, and the UK, and we have certified consultants in each location to serve you locally. Here are some of our excellent non-for-profit customers running Sage Intacct. We do have an exhaustive list. Vision 33's biggest customer footprint is actually non-for-profit, where we have approximately 35% of our client base in the NFP space. So I'm sure most of you have done your initial research on Sage Intacct, but I'd like to, just show you a few highlights. Sage Intacct isn't a solution that was retrofitted for the cloud. It's a cloud native solution from its very first line of code. It's an affordable, easy to use solution for finance teams that need only specialized finance tools. It's also a modular solution, which means you pay only for what you need now and you can add more functionality when you need it. We call Sage Intacct a best of breed solution, and its open API makes it easy to seamlessly integrate with other best of breed solutions that you could be currently using or you're currently looking into. Sage Intacct solves nonprofit finance and accounting challenges for all types of nonprofit organizations. Some are listed here. Nonprofits love Sage Intacct for its customization, automation, easy integration with other business applications, one-click consolidations, and anytime, anywhere access, even on the beach if you wish. I don't think anybody wishes that. Sage Intacct gives nonprofits the tools they need to amplify their impact by streamlining fund, grant, and project accounting. Sage Intacct also makes it easy to maintain donor trust and confidently demonstrate financial responsibility to boards, communities, and volunteers. The bottom line is that fundraising and effective program delivery are no longer enough in today's fast-paced, accountability-driven nonprofit space. Nonprofit finance leaders need to shift from reactive bookkeeping to proactive financial leadership, and Sage Intacct gives you the tools to do just that. Just a final word about Sage Intacct's embedded AI, very hot topic these days. While it's not built into our demo environment just yet, we wanted to introduce you to Sage Copilot. Basically, Sage Copilot is like getting a very smart productivity assistant. It gives you answers you trust and tools for a smoother, faster month-end close. So be sure to ask your consultant about Sage Copilot when they follow up with you. Just a reminder that you'll receive a recording of the demo within a week or so, and feel free to reach out to myself, Matthew, or anybody on our team if you would like some further information or follow up. And that's it for me. I'll turn things over to Matthew to get into the good stuff. Thank you, everybody.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. As Terry mentioned, I'm Matthew. I've been with Vision now just about 5 years. So just a reminder that today's demo specifically is going to be focused on some not-for-profit functionality. A little bit different from our weekly demo where we just do a generalized demo. We just decided to do a not-for-profit focused demo today. So just a reminder that there are going to be a couple of pieces that are really pointed towards the not-for-profit industry. Before we jump into actual functionality, just a couple more things about Intacct. As Terry mentioned, it is a native cloud environment. It is 100% browser-based, internet browser-based. So what that means is you can access your system anywhere, anytime, and do everything you see me do today. You're no longer restricted to use a machine that has a program installed on it. So you can be home on your personal laptop, at the airport on a tablet. As long as you have a device that can access the internet browser installed on that device, and an internet connection, you can connect into your solution and do everything you see me do today. You don't need an added VPN. Everything is fully secure through the data centers and our partners in AWS and Microsoft. So no worries on that end. I'm working from home at the moment, and I do not require a VPN to show you or log in to any of my client sites. The next thing we just like to chat about very quickly are the releases for the software. So being a cloud environment, releases can be pushed out automatically into your solution. So with on-prem solutions, when an update is ready for that solution, you will be prompted about the update and you will have to install the update yourself. And there are even some organizations that hire a consultant to come in and install the updates for them because sometimes they're not so straightforward. With Intacct, that goes away completely. Intacct will update automatically 4 times per year. The updates are pushed out by Sage. They will happen outside of your normal business hours, and that's just based off your geographical region. They push out the updates at different times for each geographical region. They won't make the solution slow. They won't make it unavailable. They won't break any third-party integrations you may have. It is a very seamless update. If we click on read the release notes, we can be brought into a full table of contents regarding the most recent release. There's a nice highlight video that I like. I like to watch this first thing in the morning when the release is issued with my coffee. I make notes of the updates that interest me the most or that I can use most effectively for my ongoing projects, and even things that I remember my past clients. Well, I shouldn't say past clients, they're still my client. I still support them, but their implementation project is through. But if a new functionality gets released that I knew they wanted at the time of their project, I'll always circle back around and just send them an email that just says, hey, this functionality has been released. Do you want to look into how to use it? Are you still interested in putting that to use? So once I make notes of those specific functionalities, I'll come into the table of contents and drill in to the areas, whether it's an accounts payable update, an accounts receivable update. As you know, the highlight video is going to be a brief overview, and it's always nice to get more in depth to the specific functionality that you're interested in. But as you can see from the notes about this recent release, most recent release, they're not small updates. In the most recent release, we've seen updates to accounts payable, accounts receivable, cash management, consolidated financials, the contracts module, the employee expense module, the fixed asset module, the inventory module, and so on. So they're pretty hefty releases, and most times they come with some very useful functionality. So it's always nice to drill into that material. And if you're curious when the releases will happen throughout the year, you can click on the release calendar. This is released sometime in November or December of each year. So like sometime after November 7th, the release calendar for 2025 was issued. And these dates don't change. The dates of the updates are always on target. Release 1 did come on the 7th of February. Release 2 did come on the 9th of May. Release 3 did come on the 8th of August, and so on. So sometime after November 7th of this year, we will see the release calendar for 2026 here, and you can count on that being the date that the solution will be updated. With that out of the way, let's get into actual functionality. So before we get into some nonprofit specific functionality, we're going to talk about dimensions and the power that they bring, because regardless of whether you're a nonprofit organization or in any other industry, this brings value to everybody. We don't have a single client that doesn't use dimensions because that is the backbone of almost everything Intact can do for you. So when I talk about dimensions, the way that I like to explain them is in a couple of ways to try to make sure we get the idea across. So I'm going to use my department dimension as my example. So if you think of a segmented chart of accounts, because that is probably how anyone that doesn't have these type of dimensions available would be doing it. If you think about a segmented chart of accounts where for every GL account that you have that you want to be able to track the financial activity across counseling services or the youth center or the food service department or the outreach department or your management in general, you would have sub accounts. So you would have your core GL account number. We'll say GL account number 5,000. You would have GL account 5,000-100, 5,000-110, 5,000-120, 130, 299, 200, and so on. And that causes your chart of accounts to blow up really, really quickly. And as an accountant myself, I always like to keep my chart of accounts as precise, I guess is the right word. I don't want to say small because, depending on the industry you're in, you could require more GL accounts, but more precise because the larger your chart of accounts is, the more keying errors you're going to see. It's just human nature. It just happens. Nobody is perfect, right? So that's the first way I like to describe it. The dimensions are your sub accounts, but they will come off of your core chart of accounts number. People sometimes struggle with the idea of dimensions outside of the sub account. If you ever find yourself saying the statement, I need to be able to see my expenses by X. I need to be able to report on my revenue by Y. I need to be able to report on my salaries by Z. I need to be able to report on my net income by B. Whatever those variables are, net income by department, revenue by project, and so on. Whatever those variables are that you use in that sentence, they will become your dimensions in Intact. And the way the dimensions work and still give you all of the power that you would get with a segmented chart of accounts is as you're entering any transaction in the system, be it a general ledger journal entry or an accounts payable transaction, accounts receivable invoice, literally any transaction that hits your books, you don't only tag a GL account, you tag the combination of a GL account plus any number of dimensions that you have deemed relevant to that financial data. So if you want to put it in a fund, if you want to allocate it to a department, if you want to allocate it to a site, and also to a project, you make those selections outside of your GL account number. And what that means is I can put multiple lines on any transaction to the same GL account and allocate this out differently to say different funds, different departments, whatever varies in that particular transaction. And at any point in time, I can run a general ledger detail report or a P&L or a balance sheet. I just normally stick to P&L because that is where dimensions are most heavily used. But at any point in time, I would be able to run any report and tell how much total transactions are in GL account 5121. I would also be able to say, okay, I want to see everything that's in 5121, but only for Fund 100, or only for Department 100, or only for Project 110, or for Fund 100 and Department 100 and Project 110. Because maybe down here on this line, we tag the same fund and the same department, but we tag a different project. So maybe we want to isolate 3 of our dimensions. You can do that as well. It really gives you all the flexibility you could imagine when it comes to tracking your financial data. So that's the first way I kind of like to get to it. And the next way that I'll kind of highlight this is using a P&L. So we're going to jump to not a financial graph. That is a misclick, one of those human mistakes that I talked about a moment ago. We all make them. So let's say if we just let's try to grab a P&L. I think in here it should be called a statement of revenue and expenditures. So we'll take this report right here, our actual versus budget. This will highlight the budgeting functionality and Intact at the same time. So we'll kind of get a look at a couple of things here. And as we pull this up, we see a fairly standard P&L. Now on this P&L, we're actually bringing in multiple different budgets. So we've got our original budget in the most far left column. We've got our mid-year reforecast in our second column. And then we've got our year-to-date mid-year reforecast. I ran it to the end of the year. That's why these numbers are the same. And then we have our actuals and a budget comparison at the end here. But maybe after looking at this, we say, well, this is fantastic, but what I really want to see is a statement of revenue and expenditures by my departments or by my restricted funds classifications. Well, to do that in Intacct is really simple. We'll take this exact same report, and all I'm really going to do is I'm going to duplicate it. And when I duplicate it, it asks me for a new name because we don't want to have two reports named the same. I'm going to just kind of call it by dimension because I'm actually going to split it out by a couple of dimensions just to show you how quick and easy it is to do. So then we have by dimension. So I'm going to go into this report that I've duplicated over. I'm going to go to my columns section because that is where I'm looking to make a change. I'm going to go ahead and take out my budget columns because we don't want to work with a budget in here. We're just looking for a statement of revenue and expenditures broken out by our different dimensions. I'm going to go ahead and just take a couple of these columns away. I'm only going to leave my actual column. And then what I'm going to tell this column is I'm going to say, expand this out for me by my departments. And I'm going to click set. I'm going to put in a run date on top, and I'm going to preview this exact same report. And now with just a couple of clicks, we now have an individual P&L across all of our different departments. And we have a total to the far right. So that is how we can do it by department. Nice and simple. If I wanted to do it by my class of restrictions instead, so we want to see how much restricted funds we have, unrestricted funds we have, revenue and expenses, I can change my expand by to my restrictions, and I can go ahead and click preview, and then it just switches up what it had given me prior. If we look at the total P&L, so the total net revenue over expenditures, when we look at it by our restrictions, 4.22 million. If I go back again and I change this back to department and we take another look at it, we're going to see the same bottom line number because the system is always pulling all of our financial data. So we still have the 4.22. So we know our statements are fully reconciled. We know we're including all the data in our system. So that's how quick and easy it is to get to this layer of reporting. Now, if you want to isolate a particular department or a particular restriction or a particular project or grant or fund, whatever it may be, we can put filters on the report as we're running it. So let's take the fundraising department as an example here. If we go down and we look at the bottom line for fundraising, it's the 1.7 million. So maybe we don't want this. It's not really a large report, but I'll call it large for the sake of the demo. We just want to isolate it and run it just for the fundraising. Maybe we need to send the fundraising manager their statement of revenue and expenditures, but they shouldn't be able to see any financial data for the other departments. So we want to be able to hide it. So if we save and done this report, I'll get an option then when I'm running this report, once it saves and comes out for me by dimension. When I'm running this, when I click on the HTML link to run this in the web, I have filters that I can choose from. So I can choose my fundraising department. Say, just show me my P&L for my fundraising department. And now when I run it, everything else goes away and we have just our fundraising department ran here. And then to fine tune that a little bit more, if we want to run it for a particular department, but a particular project or grant or restriction, we can choose multiple filters. So I'll take Travis County contract and I will take my fundraising department. I don't know if there's anything here or not, but we'll run it and see what we get. We don't, it's zero. So not the best example in the world, but you can tell that the filters are really working here. I'm going to run the statement again, just in full view, because someone in the audience is wondering, are the reports drillable? And absolutely, they're drillable. If I click on any dollar value that is blue, I can drill into that data, and it's filtered as well. So if I click on the 9320 for the youth center, when I drill in, I am only going to see that data, that 9320. So I don't drill into everything else. Everything is for the youth center, department 110. From here, if I click on another dollar value, that will bring me back to my journal entry. If I want to get back to the source transaction, it's just a couple of more clicks. And here I am at the actual invoice itself and not just the journal entry. If I go back to this report and I click on the total column. That, of course, will bring me in and drill me into everything for all of the different departments. All have financial data. And again, I can continue to drill back. So, really strong reporting available in here for all industries, but really for not for profits as well. They fall under that. And we can have many different versions of every report that we need. Building off of the financial reporting is the dashboard functionality out of Intact. So you can have as many dashboards in your system as you like. You can see here in my system, I have at least 20 different dashboards. These dashboards can be role-based, user-based, group-based, personal-based. Well, that is user-based, I suppose, but on a dashboard by dashboard basis. So we can tell the system that one particular user, when they log in, the only dashboard they can see is the allocations dashboard or the budget position dashboard, or they can see all the analysis dashboards, but they can't see everything else. So you can really pick and choose who can see each individual dashboard. Now, these dashboards can be used for a lot of different use cases. So if we jump to, say, the focused access dashboard, this is a pretty standard dashboard, nothing super fancy about this one. It is really just a statement of revenue and expenditures, as well as a balance sheet for the Wallace Trust. So just a pretty focused dashboard here for this one. Now, going into some more relevant dashboards to, say, not-for-profit businesses, we have like compliance dashboards where we can see things like our audit home board. So they've got like checklists on them. They've got a little billboard at the top about the audit. So some quick links into some specific screens that will be used heavily during the audit. So there's that type of stuff. But the really good dashboards really come out to when we're looking at financial data or KPIs. So this dashboard here is an organization sample NFP dashboard. So just for an organization type, not for profit. So we're looking at how many clients we served this year and we're comparing it to the prior year. We're looking at how many meals we served this year. Again, looking at the prior year. How many volunteer hours we had this year to the prior year. So volunteer hours have gone down. What our total program expenses were, again, compared to the prior year. Now, this doesn't have to compare to the prior year. We're comparing against the prior year because we're looking at this year on these, but this could be this month and it could be versus the prior month or versus the same month in the prior year. You can really pick and choose what these comparative values are. We then have a statement of revenue and expenditures broken out by my departments, kind of specific departments in this case, but not only broken out by departments, but also comparing against the budget for each department with some nice indicators built in, some conditional formatting, some indicators on the variances, some really nice stuff in here. Might look a little intimidating to do this kind of stuff, the conditional formatting and these indicators that we see on the variance. Super easy to do in Intact, just a couple of clicks, really, really easy. So it's nice that you can get these types of reports with this kind of insight super easy. And then we have some program expenditures per client. So you see we've got total expenditures here, and then we're using our client served to get a cost per client, right? So if we were to take the 3,444,981.48 and divide it by our 1900, we should get 1813.15. So we can actually use our statistical data that we seen above for our client served to calculate KPIs on some financial reports, such as their cost per client. So really interesting data and really simple to do in Intact. We scroll down, we have a statement of revenue and expenditures. This time, not to show, this is actually just expenses, but now this is by our different sites. So we have our main site, our Smithwick site, our event site, our Reedville site. So just a comparison of sites. Down below, we have some more metrics. We just have a very basic revenue and expenditures report, very summarized for each individual site. Pretty simple. Then have a volunteer effort by program. So we can see that there's actually 2 years. There's no label on this for some reason, but the green line is showing the year ended 2021, while the teal line is showing the year ended 2020. So we're looking at our volunteer effort by program year over year. If we click on show data, we can see the actual numbers. That's one way to see the numbers, but something really cool about Intact is any financial graph that you see like this, maintains drill down functionality. So if I click on the 5751, it will drill me in. This is going to be very basic because it's a statistical account, but nonetheless, it highlights that you can drill back. We then have our clients per program. Now, these two reports side by side are pretty interesting because if we look at the volunteer effort by program, we see that the youth center is the leader by a long shot. Like the youth center has a volunteer effort of over 5,000, while every other department is barely breaking 1,000. And then if we look at the graph to the right, our clients per program, our youth center has second least of all of our clients. So we're putting in a very heavy volunteer, a lot of effort volunteer wise onto this department, and we're not seeing many clients as a result. So maybe that's an analysis there of it's time to do something a little bit different, right? Whereas our counseling services, we have very little, very low volunteer effort, but we have a pile of clients. So interesting stuff that you can see off your dashboards really nice and quickly. And then we have our meals served by site. So the main site serves the most meals by far, and then we can see the breakdown. And again, all of this is drillable. So if I click on a piece of the pie, it will open up that piece of the pie for me. So that's one example of an MPO focused dashboard. You can see here that we have MPO focused dashboards for associations, churches, clinics, ministries, just a very generic sample NFP. We'll just bring this one up just to take a look. It looks like it's actually going to be the exact same dashboard, ironically enough. Not what I was really expecting to see there, but it is almost the same. It is the same dashboard. So let's grab a different one. Let's jump into, say, our clinic metrics instead. And on this one, it's going to be a similar dashboard, but just different terminology, just to show how it can be molded to meet your organization's needs. So there we have clinic metrics. So now we have patients served and office visits instead of meals served, right? Number of clinicians is 85 and revenue per clinician. Rather than looking at expenses per client, we're looking at revenue per doctor or clinician. So cool stuff. Really great stuff here for the dashboards for profit businesses and not for profit businesses. Cool. So now what we're going to do is we're going to jump into a very not for profit focused functionality, and that will be the tracking of restricted funds and the releasing of those funds as applicable expenses are incurred or appropriate expenses. So what we do to manage restricted funds in Intacct is we use one of our dimensions, as I mentioned earlier. And you'll see here that I have a dimension called restrictions now. This is normally the class dimension, but it's been renamed because we're using it for restrictions. And if we go in here, we see we have permanently restricted, we have temporarily restricted, we have unrestricted, and we just have restricted. So this would allow us to run a P&L by our funds, our restricted classifications, as we saw a little while ago, but it also allows us to label our cash receipts appropriately as either permanently, temporarily restricted, unrestricted, or restricted. And it also opens up the door for us to use the restriction release functionality out of Sage Intacct, which can really automate moving funds from temporarily restricted into unrestricted. So the example that I have ready to go for this is if we jump into our general ledger journal entries, I'm going to go find a very specific journal entry to show you. So we're going to go to our cash receipts journal. I'm going to look for journal number 113, and this is going to be a journal entry we entered for restriction release. So in this journal entry, we are saying we had $50,000 come in to our bank. It was a local grantor contract. It is for the fund of the Travis County contract, and it is temporarily restricted. And this came in on October 1 of 2021. Now, throughout the year after October, we incurred some expenses related to this grant. So if we jump to accounts payable and accounts payable bills, we're going to see a couple of example bills here. So the first one we have is this first bill for ABC office supplies. If we drill into this bill, as we were entering in this expense, we tagged it to be for the Travis County contract, just like our receipt of funds was. We've said that this is going to end up being unrestricted, and we incurred expenses of $19,000 on this specific bill into GL account 5300. So let's just keep a note of that. On this bill, we have GL account 5300 for $19,000. If I go back We have one more bill entered related to this. It's again from ABC Office Supplies. And on this bill, we have 13,000 for GL account 5305 and another 12,000 for GL account 5300. So in total, we have $44,000 of expenses we've incurred related to this specific fund. And now what we'd like to do is move that revenue out of restricted and into unrestricted because we've incurred the appropriate expenses related to that grant. So normally in most systems that I know, this would be a manual process. We would have to run some type of reports, export them to Excel, isolate data, and find this $44,000 out of a mass of data. Well, in Intacct, using the release restriction and release functionality, this is going to become very automated. So I just jump to my general ledger. I jump into my generate restriction release. I come to this screen, I need to fill in some data. So I'm going to say that we're going to post this on 01/01 of 2022. I know that this would probably be in the same fiscal year, so it would probably be 12/31/2021. But the way I entered a couple of my bills, if I try to use 12/31 here, I get an error. So I'm going to push it out one day. We're going to put this into our restriction release journal. So these journal entries are isolated and easy to find. I need to put in an email address so the system can notify me when it tries to run this process, whether it was successful or a failure. We are going to say we want to move things out of our temporarily restricted category into our unrestricted category. We're going to look for any expenses that occurred in the calendar year of December 2021, and we're going to look in all of our expenditures, every expense account that we have, and we are focusing now on the Travis County contract. This is the fund that we're looking to release our funds for. And all I have to do is click generate. The system is going to go out now. It's going to look for any applicable expenses we incurred, and it's going to automatically move that revenue out of restricted, temporarily restricted, and into unrestricted. So what happens with this stuff, just as a note, is Intact pushes this to what's called an offline job queue. And it does that. So if this were a longer process, if there were more transactions for the system to go through, we wouldn't have to sit there and wait. Like it's pushed off to a different server. So I could technically go continue working now while I'm waiting for this to finish. I don't have to sit here and wait for this to finish. I could technically go keep working as this is happening, kind of not in a way that it slows you down. So that is the idea and why they push these things out to that queue. But when this finishes, I can guarantee you that we are going to see a journal entry that is going to take that revenue out of restricted and put it into unrestricted, the 44,000. And there it is, it's done. So there's our pass. So we can see that the process ran successfully. And if we click on the journal entry, it will show us all of the detail that we should need. So we view that journal entry and we can now tell when this loads up, you can see that the system has debited our revenue account for the 44,000. It's debited temporarily restricted. So it's removed the revenue as temporarily restricted and it goes ahead and reposts it into the same GL account, but it reposts it as unrestricted revenue now. So a really nice automated feature there. Now, when you're running this restriction release, I should have noted, you don't have to specify a grant. You can run it for all of your grants, all of your funds at once. The reason you see that a red asterisk denotes that this is a mandatory field, there is no note by our funding source dimension filter. So we could run this for all of our funds, all of our grants, all of our restricted funds at the same time. I, of course, chose one specific one just so we weren't sad. We would have had to wait much longer if I were to allow this to run across all the grants in the system. So a really nice automated feature. You get a nice log behind it that again allows you to drill in and make sure things happen as they should. So really a great feature here for managing restricted revenue and unrestricted revenue and moving it in and out appropriately. So really great stuff. So there's just that example. The next functionality that we'll focus on for Intacct, the not-for-profit industry, is very related to what we just did. It is your project or grant tracking. And what we do to track that in Intacct is we use a dimension that is called the projects dimension. Now we can rename the projects dimension to read projects or grants. It can be grants or funds. It can just be grants. But in here, we can set up all of our different grants. So we see we have different grants set up. We have the Travis County contract that we just used. We have a federal grant, a foundation award, a research grant. At any point in time, I can see how much restricted, unrestricted, temporarily restricted, permanently restricted revenue we have for each one of these grants. If we drill into a specific grant, seems like I clicked it twice somehow. We see a lot of good information. So we see an ID, we see the customer that it's for, so it's for Tarrant County. We see a beginning and an end date. We see that we have a parent-child relationship. We see that this is related to our general fund and our youth center department, and it is generally the funds that we receive for this are unrestricted. So this is not a restricted type grant. And that is how we can manage that. And what this does is actually really important when you set up your grants. So if I go in, if I duplicate my tab, just to highlight the importance of this field specifically, if I am doing a journal entry or an accounts payable or a cash receipt, whatever it may be, I will actually do a cash receipt because I think it's most applicable. We come in here and if we say down below that we are receiving money for our Tarrant County contract, you'll notice the system defaults our fund, our restriction, and our department. So that is how it really helps stop us from putting in restricted funds for an unrestricted type of grant. So it speeds up keying error, or speeds up keying time, reduces keying errors, and just makes your life a lot easier. If we jump back to the contract itself, we can have our primary contact. So if we look at this contact, this would be our contact who we reach out to about this grant. So we can really maintain very important information regarding that grant. We have our own internal project manager of this grant. We can add custom fields to track certain milestones or aspects, like if we have a letter of intent received or not. We don't have that yet. For this one, it's a custom field, but if we've gotten the money, we probably have the letter of intent, so we can put a checkbox in our letter of intent. If we go to the additional info tab, we have some more grant specific fields. So we have just the same information we've seen below. What is the revenue restriction on this? Is it going to be purpose-based or is it going to be time-based? If it's purpose-based, that would be when we would use the GL restriction release functionality that we saw a couple of moments ago. If it's time released, if this were, say, a time release, not like an applicable expenses release, when we first receive that money for the Travis County, what we would most likely do if it's say they say you can recognize this revenue from temporarily restricted to unrestricted over a year period, we would come in and we would just set up recurring journal entries. So if you recall, we incurred that revenue, we received that cash on October 1 of 2021. So we would still put this to the release journal and we would say to release time-based grant. And what we would do down below is we would, of course, choose the same GL account. So we're going to debit our federal grants for our Travis County project. And that was $50,000. So we're going to need to do 12 of this over a year. So we would do 50,000 divided by 12 to give us the 4166.67. And then we would create the journal entry to credit then our revenue, still our same fund, but this is actually going to go into unrestricted now, and it's still for the same project. I'll have to come back here and make this unrestricted. And what we would do is we would then put this on a schedule and we would say, we're going to start this on October 31st, 2021. It is going to repeat after a number of occurrences. It is going to end after 12 occurrences because we can recognize it over a year, and we're going to repeat this every 1 month, and then we would just set up this journal entry. And if I save this, the system will actually go ahead and do it. I'm missing a site dimension, just not knowing the demo environment quite well enough. So we'll just put the main there. And then when I save this, the system will then do the time-based release. And since my books are open back in 2021, the system will actually go back and post these journal entries. This is very similar to the restriction release we saw a moment ago, where it could take some time, but it also could happen very quickly. We'll jump back here in a moment just for the sake of time. So then if it's time-based, we have the restriction expiration years. This would be 1 year in the example that I just used. And the first restriction release, we would say that we just did would be 10/31/2021, right? So we can track all that. I don't know why we have duplicate fields here. These are These are custom fields, but you get the idea. We then have a schedule of expenditure and federal awards where we can track the ALN, the funded name, the agency, whether the payer is federal or a third party, and whether they have an other ID, and whether it's cash or non-cash. So is it cash or is it gift in kind, more or less, right? We scroll down, we have some other information that is more really for the projects module itself. Once we get past these couple of fields on this tab, that is really it for the not-for-profit section. And I have some resources and billing tabs. We're not really going to need this. I don't think we're going to have billable grants to talk about. We then have a project or grant summary, and this is where really we'll be able to see the revenue and our expenditures related to this specific grant and our budget as well. So a nice analysis tab here. The system pulls this information in automatically for us. And we just see some other information as well. Have we put any hours into this grant? Do we have any employee expenses or accounts payable transactions, what they are, and so on. And that is really how we use Intacct for grant tracking. Very quick overview, but an effective one nonetheless. If we come back here just to our journal entry, I would assume that these are probably done by now. They are. So you can see now that the system has run through and done all 12 journal entries to release that revenue. If we click on the 12 of posted, it is going to show us that it posted one October 31st, November 30th, December 30th, January 30th, February 28th, March 28th. It started going to the 28th, I guess, after the leap year. I could have avoided this, by the way. I think I just missed a checkbox when I set up my recurring journal entry. If I wanted them all to post at the last day of the month, I'm quite positive that on the schedule here, I could have selected end of month just to ensure that it posts on the last day of every month. I just missed this little checkbox, so not a big deal. Still post in the same month. A couple of days is not the difference maker for this by a long shot. And that is the grant tracking, the revenue restriction release, and some non-for-profit dashboards. And that more or less is going to clue up our demo for today for the not-for-profit industry, some not-for-profit specific examples. What I want to highlight before we go is I don't want anybody to be here today or see a recording of this demo and think, oh, I saw everything that Intacct has to offer for NPOs and it looks good. It couldn't be further from the truth. I mean, we didn't even scratch the surface of what Intacct can do, let alone get into everything that Intacct can do. We just glossed over some functionalities out of Intacct today. Outside of what I showed today, there are so many modules that we didn't talk about. We have the purchasing module where we can set up your procurement workflows from start to finish. So you can have purchase requisitions and purchase orders, receipts of inventory if you're a nonprofit that has inventory. I don't have any, but I know they're out there. Into the vendor invoice. This comes with a full audit trail, a three-way, four-way match. We can put approval policies on any part, any document in your workflow, and they can be routed a number of different ways, very flexible. Works for 99% of our clients. We can set up an approval workflow in the system. Email notifications, delegations, able to override approval so that nothing is stuck in limbo, a really flexible option. We also have the order entry module, which is basically the twin of the purchasing module. It's just on the revenue side of your business. And of course, if you don't need to get into a full procurement workflow or sales workflow, you can always just use the accounts payable or the accounts receivable module. Purchasing is a more powerful AP module. Order entry is a more powerful accounts receivable module. There's nice bank reconciliation functionality, and I actually am going to show this because the bank rec functionality is just so vital to many people. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to jump in and I'm going to show you how Intacct can help with your bank rec. So right now, as it is, I have 68 transactions in the month of December for this bank account that I need to reconcile, and I haven't brought in my bank transactions yet. But when I bring in my bank transactions, we can have matching rules set up so that when your bank transactions flow into the system, Intacct can do a lot of the reconciliation for you. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in my bank file. And when I bring in my bank file and reload the bank rec, we're actually going to see all of my transactions get automatically matched, all but two. So now all of a sudden, my bank rec is almost completely done for me. I have two transactions left here. I have a $2 million and I have a 4934. Now, as you can see, the difference between my statement ending balance of 9.53 million and my book balance of 9.525 million is the 4934.91. So the most likely situation is this check didn't clear the bank in the month of December. This is going to be an outstanding item on our bank rec. We have the $2 million here didn't get matched. The reason this didn't get matched is because we've put the GL posting date in Intacct as 12/31. This actually hit our bank on 12/21. So since the amount and the date don't match perfectly, the system won't match it up. And that is to prevent the system from incorrectly matching items against the wrong corresponding item. Like if you have a lot of different receipts in your system for say $500, the only way to make sure the system matches the $500 up correctly is to ensure that the date and the amount are exactly the same. But all I have to do to finish this bank right now is click match on my 2 million. That will bring me in and let me choose the Intacct transaction it should match against, which of course is the other 2 million. I can match that transaction. Now we're here. We have no unmatched bank transactions. We only have one unmatched Intacct transaction. Our unmatched transactions perfectly balances to the difference between our statement ending balance and our book balance. So I can click on reconcile and my system should be able to reconcile. There's some type of weird partial match happening on me here at the moment. I don't know what this is about. Just getting a little bit of an error, and I don't know why, because we don't have anything partially matched. So I think the system is just bugging out a little bit. But that is the idea. When we click reconcile, the bank will be reconciled. And Intacct is going to maintain all of your reconciliation reports, all your historical reconciliations, and your outstanding items reports. So they're really easy to access and get at. We can also produce ACH files or EFT files to pay your vendors out of Sage Intacct. We can also manage credit cards. Outside of the purchasing and order entry module that we didn't get to see, there are other modules that we didn't get to see, such as inventory control. As long as you are not doing manufacturing, this is a very good inventory module. We can manage warehousing with aisles and rows and bins. We can do barcode scanning. We can maintain your inventory valuations. We can do inventory cycles and inventory counts. We can do inventory replenishment. So a strong inventory module. There is a full-blown revenue recognition module available out of Sage Intacct where you can set up your revenue recognition templates and let the system automatically recognize that revenue over the period of time. There is a budgeting tool, which we saw briefly. There's a fixed asset management module in Intacct. There is a timesheet module in Intacct where employees can enter time to projects or grants and so on. So there is a vast amount of functionality that we didn't get to talk about today with it being an MPO focused demo. So if you want to see anything in more depth, all you have to do is let us know and we're happy to do a more focused demo for you. And with that, I will thank everybody for coming out to our non-for-profit focused demo. If you were registered for this and you're not an MPO and you want a copy of the more focused demo, which actually goes into a little more functionality, specifically into the purchasing module. That is the other module that we focus heavily on our generic demo. So that demo recording would have a lot more information regarding that module. Just let us know or feel free to sign up for next week and watch that demo or just receive a copy of it. Even as a registrant, you would get a copy of the demo for next week. So thank you, everybody. It's been a pleasure. I hope everybody has a wonderful Tuesday and hope to talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you, Matthew, for that demo. Great job. Well, that's it for today, folks. I'm not going to take up any more of your time. Thanks for joining us. And of course, please follow up if you would like additional information on Sage Intacct. We'd be happy to discuss further. Have a great day.